Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to see all of you gathered here for a conversation on the invisible battle, whatever that means. But obviously, we are going to focus on a particular aspect: resilience, psychological operations, and dealing with them from a variety of perspectives. I'm Linas Kojala. I head a think tank based here in Vilnius, Lithuania, Geopolitics and Security Studies Center, and I'm very happy that we are again here in an event organized by the Nordic Council of Ministers office in Lithuania, together with the Swedish Embassy. We are going to have a couple of speakers who are going to share their insights, again, from a variety of perspectives, but my initial ask is to be active and participate. Hopefully you'll have some engaging questions or remarks to make, because we would like to make it a conversation rather than a lecture. I'll now introduce the speakers. So we have a guest, Magnus Hjort, who is Director General of the Swedish Psychological Defense Agency. Hello, Magnus. Monika Garbačiauskaitė-Budrienė, Director General of LRT, Lithuania's public broadcaster. And Dr. Lauri Palsa, a postdoctoral researcher at University of, and now you're going to have to say the name.
Jyväskylä.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat that. Also a chairperson of the Finnish Society on Media Education. So again, we'll proceed in the following way. I have a couple of questions for participants. We'll avoid long monologues at the beginning, and then hopefully we'll speak with you together. We have 1 hour for all of this. So Magnus, I would like to start with you, because you wrote me the email last. So I'll start off with you. You had a very interesting institution in terms of its name, which is quite unusual, maybe in some countries that don't have an equivalent, and maybe you could share if there are some equivalents in other countries and how they are called. Can you just briefly tell us what you do on a daily basis? What's your kind of focus and emphasis nowadays?
I sit in panels like this one. I do lectures. No, besides that, psychological defense, and I'm so glad that you chose the name for this panel. How can we equip society for psychological defense? Sweden didn't invent psychological defense, obviously, but we were quite early in using that term in a security environment from the early 1950s, actually. And today we define it as society's ability to resist foreign malign information influence, and in case of war, we also need psychological defense to resist all the attempts from the foreign adversaries to break down our will to defend ourselves, our will to resist, our resilience. But that's what's going to happen in a war. An adversary will try to break down our resilience, will try to make us surrender. And the message from Sweden is we will never surrender. We don't know how, actually. There's no law actually explaining how we should do it, so we can't really surrender. We have two remits from the Swedish government. One is to constantly monitor what foreign adversaries are doing towards Sweden in the information domain. And it's no secret that Russia is our main focus, but of course China, Iran also. And Sweden has always also been the target from Islamist activists in the Middle East targeting our social services. That was a couple of years ago, a huge campaign from those entities. We also build resilience, and we have a whole of society approach. We work together with civil society, local and regional government agencies, in trying to build awareness, readiness, preparedness. Sorry, is this a long monologue?
Relatively.
Okay. Should I stop?
No, you can continue, but I have some further questions for you, just maybe to more specifically focus on how the Swedish society perceives the current landscape. Because in Lithuania, we were speaking about resilience since the restoration of independence. Disinformation was a constant threat, and maybe we didn't use hybrid warfare as the main term to describe some of the things that we were facing. The reality on the ground was more or less the same. But it seems that for many countries, especially further to the west in Europe, also the United States, maybe 2014 or even 2022 only became the threshold since when it became an issue also for them. So how is it with the Swedish society?
It's more or less like you described it. When the Cold War ended, the Berlin Wall was torn down. A lot of new countries was established, new democracies. We all were cheering. Democracy is going to spread all over now. There will be no more wars. Eternal peace is here forever. Russia is going to be good now. Russia will never invade anyone. So we thought, and we dismantled our total defense. Psychological defense was never mentioned again. Although we should have been aware of, things like the Chechen wars, the murder of Litvinenko in London, the attacks on the cyber attacks on Estonia 2007, the Georgian War 2008, and still we didn't react. We thought these are bad things. Russia shouldn't do this, but we didn't understand the full strategic effects of this. So it was until the war 2014 when we were waking up, basically. This was a wake-up call, and we started to discuss, shouldn't we have a total defense? Don't we also need to defend ourselves? Psychological defense. We had that once. What is it actually? And we started to rebuild our total defense in 2015, and also discussing, because that's what we do, democracies. We discuss things, we have inquiries. So we started an inquiry in 2019. Should we have psychological defense agency? Yes, we should. So we were slow, but 2014 was a wake-up call, and of course, even more, 2022 with the full-scale invasion.
Yeah, we are talking about resilience, and we have to be very practical in this, because we have to be resilient on stage, and you have to be resilient in the audience, because the basketball game is on now, and we obviously would like to see the result, but maybe let's keep it to the end of the conversation. Monica, I would like to now switch to you. You had the public broadcaster, which is very important for every European country in order to maintain societal resilience, to inform the society, to adapt to the changing informational landscape. Could you describe some of the key challenges that you are facing today, knowing that we are constantly under the bombardment coming from Russia, Belarus, China possibly, and other unfriendly regimes that would like to destroy democracies by using some of our systemic features that maybe some authoritarian regimes do not have, and think that they are more resilient because of this, such as freedom of speech, freedom of opinion?
I think there are many challenges, and the media industry in recent years has gone through a lot of transformation, and not only due to geopolitical situations. This is only one of the aspects, but in general, how people consume information, how they switched from traditional media to social media, which became often their main source of information. The presence of social media and how the manipulations are being, what kind of manipulations are taking place there. Also now AI and its impact of it coming and it will have a tremendous effect on media, and we don't feel it yet so much, but it's coming already. So this is one of the aspects. Another thing is that it is very important that in the democracy, to have the independent media and independent broadcast, public service media, which could provide for any parts of society, any audiences. And we see that due to audience fragmentation, we see that also due to the geopolitical situation and political trends, and on how politicians are manipulating the audiences, we see increasing fragmentation. And for public service media, it is increasingly difficult to serve these fragmented audiences. Meanwhile, tackling all the challenges that it was mentioned here today. Also, we have another challenge is the constant fight for independence of public service media, which also has to be put on the table, because it's a constant battle. It's not that you fight it once and it's done. No, because they come back, and now we have a situation again in Lithuania, and these fights take a lot of energy and time that we could have dedicated for much more meaningful purposes on educating society, on creating the projects, on thinking on how to resist and so on. But of course, we are doing our best, and there are all kind of ways to build this resistance. Fact-checking, fighting disinformation in a fact-checking way is only one of it, and I would say not probably the main one, because once people have their convictions and are in a certain bubble, it is very difficult to change their opinion. But I'm sure that the other panelists have much more profound knowledge in this and will elaborate on that. But I'm sure that it is very important to have a trusted media, and so that the media would provide, trustful news, trustful information, quality analysis, but also good entertainment, good education and good entertainment, and various initiatives that could unite people. And sometimes, a basketball game is much more important, or any other game that Lithuanians are winning in sports, much more uniting than any, and they have much more impact than any other, I don't know, fact-checking initiatives that go on and on, telling that no, you are not right. It's not, you shouldn't think that way, or educating people in this way. So we try to go all this kind of directions, also try to be closer to people, and so that means that we should have a lot of different operations and be in TikTok, for example, provide our news also for youngsters and the projects for young people and try to engage them. Be in YouTube, be anywhere where we in the platforms that we cannot control, but since the audience is there, we have to respond to this need. So yeah, I will.
Let me test one assumption that I have. I remember one case, probably 6-7 years ago. There was this rumor spread by someone that some soldiers that are stationed in Lithuania, some of our allied soldiers from Germany or the United States, raped a girl. And this was a rumor spread using emails and some other ways of communicating. But I think we were good in dealing with this because media did not publish it, even though obviously that would gather a lot of clicks and attention. And they were not rushing to be the first ones announcing something that was not verified, even though, again, it's a very competitive media landscape. They were talking to one another, communicating with one another among different editorial agencies and boards. And in the end, I think the effectiveness of this particular psyops, if we can argue that this was a psyops, was probably not even felt by anyone. So it seems that Lithuanian media companies, editors, journalists really know how to deal with this, at least in general, and some of the cases seem to prove that. Do you agree with this?
Yes, I would agree. Of course, it happens, sometimes that these messages go through, but it's very rare. I would say very rare case. I cannot even remember myself. It's sometimes, I think it happened that we republished something from BBC who it was their fault that just got hooked on some disinformation. But in our case, yeah, and it's not easy, as you mentioned, because in its speed is very important in Lithuanian case. So you have to be very quick, and of course everybody knows that speed is an enemy of quality. So here, yes, but we see that there are a lot of attempts. There are a lot of attempts also using the familiar TV journalists and host faces and having them, having fakes produced with the help of AI. And also, by the way, we recently just had a case with a supposedly letter written by Belarusian opposition, Wojciechowski, written in Russian, which was a fake. And
sent to the General Prosecutor's Office.
So journalists it didn't go through the media, but it went through General Prosecution Office, unfortunately. So really, the institutions have to be very careful, and we will have more and more of it. For example, we had a case during elections, presidential election debate. I think we had the one of the. I think it was Vaitkus candidate, Vaitkus pro-Russian candidate, who took our debate, and they put a different text in Russian in the into the lips of the participants and distributed in YouTube. So luckily this time YouTube, because it was a content that was produced with the help of AI, and they didn't mark it, so YouTube was very quick to move it down. But it's not always the case. Sometimes you really have to prove it, that they stole your content, that it is being distributed in the wrong way, and it takes a lot of time. And so the relations with the platforms is a different story. It's a painful thing, and it really. It's sometimes you have to fight for your information to not to be removed, the correct information, or to fight to remove the information that shouldn't be there, that is, the infringement of copyright and so on.
Thank you. Lauri, I would like to move on and ask you a question on media literacy, because firewall, produced or created by the media companies is essential. The quality of journalism is absolutely crucial. But in the end, we have a lot of consumers facing a lot of different ways of gathering information and getting information nowadays. And then we talk about the issue of media literacy and how to improve it. And as far as I know, you focus on this quite extensively, and you have vast experience in dealing with this particular issue from a variety of perspectives. So first of all, can you define what media literacy is and just inform us on the ways you're trying to improve it?
Thank you very much for your question. And this is a topic that I have been wondering about like 15 years, and I have not yet find a conclusion about what really the media literacy, but I have different kind of suggestions what that could be. The traditional way is to understand it's some kind of ability that is you can critically analyze, understand the media that you are consuming, like the metaphorically like reading the media in different forms. But then there is also the ability to write. So also the ways in the skills and knowledge that you need to produce the media. And I think that is like changed the media literacy landscape for quite radically during the past decades. Because not only the people are not only like the consumers and readers of the different kind of medias, but they are more and more participating in creating the shared media culture that we actually live in. So I think more and more focus should be also put on the writing part of literacy, not only about reading, but also like the responsibility of what kind of a media culture are we creating when we participate in this situation. But even though I have been a really big advocate for media literacy, I think my history has also shown that there is also limits in media literacy. Because one thing that I see a problematic here is that media literacy is often proposed as a too simple solutions for too complex problems. If we have different kind of societal problems, lack of democratic participation or populistic media or misinformation and disinformation and that kind of information warfare, I think it's quite imbalanced assumption that we think that, okay, we just need to teach people how to read media. Because I think that puts too much responsibility for the shoulders of an individual citizens. Because these things are, as we have already discussed, they are too complex to be left for the responsibility of one stakeholder. So that leads me to this conclusion that I think in the future we should like reimagine or transform our basic idea of media literacy in a sense that what I would like to suggest is that media literacy should not be only like how one person can defend themselves against these kind of threats that we are facing in the society, but rather than like changing the perspective in a way how we can take care of each other. Because this is not only about everybody stands for themselves, but we live in this society, and I think it raises and strengthens the resilience of the society if we see the different ways how we can support each other and take care of each other in the families, in our friends. And for example, when my grandmother talks about things that she sees on TikTok, because I'm not in TikTok, but my grandmother is. And then when she faces something unusual there, then we can discuss together and find solutions, what this actually mean, and how we can respond to those emotions that those media actually raise in ourselves. So story short, long story short, media literacy is different kind of abilities that people have, but it's not only about taking care of themselves, but also taking care of others.
I'm on TikTok. Please recommend your grandmother to follow me. What I wanted to ask you was on this point in particular, because what struck me in terms of the email that you've sent me about your focus was the fact that there is too much responsibility on the shoulders of a regular person. And it seems that the narrative is the following. We certainly face the problem, which is that disinformation and propaganda is a very relevant issue in our daily lives. Then the solution is media literacy. So we have a lot of campaigns and programs in order to increase the literacy of each of us. And then if it fails, it supposes that those people that are still failing in this are quite illiterate. And that probably fragments the society even more, because it kind of pushes people who are not kind of looking at this from a critical point of view and maybe consume information without having their understanding of what's real and what's not real, and maybe the tools to distinguish. So do you see the shift in this paradigm? Whether it's really shifting and we focus on the understanding that there might be different needs in different communities, and the solutions may not necessarily come from top to bottom, from the governments or institutions. Maybe it should be done by using, as you say, communities more.
Yeah, I think one thing that I have found, one problematic aspect of this kind of, because it's really difficult for me to discuss the downsides of media literacy and media education, because I'm a great advocate for it, but what I'm proposing is that it's a great solution, but it's not actually easy solution, because media literacy is something that is, for example, in Finnish education system we have developed already from the 70s, so 50 years already. It's not like a simple thing to do, and if we propose media literacy as a solution, we need to make sure that it's not only about talking the talk, but also walking the walk. It needs resources, and it needs this kind of deep transformation, which doesn't happen easily, and it doesn't come outside from the education system to the education system. But the education system should be greatly involved in this discussion. What are we already doing, and what could be the relevant and significant solutions that we could find? Not that in a way that I have been working as an expert in policy making for over 10 years, and I understand that it shouldn't be left only for the policymakers and politicians to recognize that, okay, we just need media literacy, and then we throw the ball to the teachers, and the teachers are what? They are often left out from this discussion. So what I would like to suggest is that we should focus more on this kind of participatory development to involve those stakeholders who actually are part in this process to the discussion about these issues that we are facing. So I think when we discuss this kind of societal resilience or invisible battles, then we should invite the teachers and the schools also taking part in these discussions. Yeah.
Yes, interesting to hear you, Lauri. I think media literacy is absolutely inevitable. It's something that we need. But I quite agree with you. It's not enough, and it kind of puts a lot of responsibility on the individual. Yeah. So we try to work with youth organizations, with teachers and schools in order to enhance understanding of how the media landscape looks like. But I think perhaps we also need to make the social media platforms more accountable to what they are actually spreading, because they are making money from both criminal ads and also from the stuff that Russia is pushing out. They are making money from this quite blatantly, and it seems that they are not bothered by this. So I think we have to work on different front lines here together with the social media platforms, with regulations, with schools, teachers, enhancing media literacy, but also learning more about how the adversary is actually working, how they are doing it, what are their strategies, how do they keep targeting our vulnerabilities? Because if we do not address our vulnerabilities as societies, then they will keep attacking those vulnerabilities. And they are different in different societies, but we all have vulnerabilities.
I would like to ask each of you one particular question. You represent 3 different countries, so do you think your country is an example to follow in this particular field? And also, could you give one very particular example of a success story? What was done right, especially over the last 2 to 3 years? Because as Lauri was saying, maybe some things that were effective 15 years ago are irrelevant nowadays because of relevance of social media and many other technological and non-technological developments. But let's look for success stories, because I think Nordic and Baltic countries are always cooperating closely on very practical matters and exchanging ideas in order to implement them in different environments. Monica, maybe you could share some examples.
Yeah, I could. I'm thinking about. Do you mean like more media literacy?
From your perspective, that could be media literacy. That could be media companies dealing with the new informational landscape.
No, I could. I'm glad that LRT took not only on news and on producing content as what media usually is supposed to do, and it does, but also on certain campaigns. For example, Radarom. I would name for our guest speakers. I would just give a context that after the war was launched after Russia targeted Ukraine and full-scale invasion in 2022, we decided to, together with our partners who work with Ukraine, providing all kind of help, we decided to launch a fundraising campaign. For us, it was a success case in a sense that we already done, I think, 3 of that every year. And in the first one, we collected, I think, 14 million euros or something. I don't remember now, but it was an incredible amount of money. And also, it was an incredibly unifying event for Lithuania, and it was quoted, and and also world media wrote about it. It was also extraordinary thing that on money that were fundraised on the live air or on air of public service media, military equipment was bought. From radars that protect to all kind of protect other protected next year of protection equipment. And on the last campaign this year it was drones. At the same time, we tried to enhance the capabilities of Lithuanian producers, also to participate in it, to donate, and we try to add up to their capacity to grow and produce the weapons that will be probably needed in the future. So I think that was a very powerful tool. And the businesses also very much participated in it, not only the citizens, but the citizens, from kids to elderly people, to senior people who were calling this number and donating. It was really incredible. Also, it was for us, LRT team, it was also a very useful exercise, because our team, from journalists to TV hosts to cameraman to everybody, was so engaged, were so trying to help, that for us, I think it was the best trans department exercise, just breaking silos exercise ever. So I would say that this kind of things, and we are planning to launch some more of things like that. We are trying to work out useful campaigns, for example, with the Red Cross. We will have next season the pretty big campaign, also teaching people on how to survive, how to cope with difficult situations when this day comes, if it comes. We are trying to make the powerful campaigns and not to let all kind of small things, just to scatter the resources on smaller things, but try to make our input in the campaigns like that. So I would say that this was a very, very good example.
Magnus?
Yes, first of all, well, I think it works to our advantage that we do both threat assessment and analysis and also resilience building in the same agency. And that could be unique for Europe and the West. There are other agencies like Visionum in France. They do great analysis, technical analysis, but not so much in the resilience building. And I think it's a good thing that we have both those things in our house. Success stories. It's always difficult to assess the effect of information campaigns, information warfare, and also the countermeasures are also difficult to measure, actually. But one thing that is certain is that when we started our transition into NATO, after the full-scale invasion, the debate went up. Should we enter NATO or not? And a couple of parties had been pro-NATO for decades. Some parties were hesitant. Two parties were perhaps against. But it was quite soon decided that we should apply for NATO membership. And a few voices was heard saying we need to have this in the general election in the autumn, or we need to have a referendum. We don't have many referendums in Sweden. We've had like 5 or 6 for the last 100 years. And we do not do referendums on our security policy normally. But it was decided that no, we go together, the government together with the opposition, we unify in proceeding with our NATO membership. And that was a good decision, because I think everyone knew that should we have had a NATO discussion in the general election, then this would have been an extremely interesting target for Russian influence. Since this was decided before the general election, there was nothing to do for the Russians, except, of course, disturbing the process, like accusing us of being Islamophobic in order to make Turkey hesitant about letting Sweden in, etc., etc. But they could do nothing to prevent the Swedish transition, the Swedish process. Decision process, I mean. And that is a way of reducing vulnerability in your own country, by reducing the things that a foreign adversary can target. So,
Thank you. Yeah, Lauri.
I really like both of your examples, because they not only show the importance of the results, what is come up, but also the way of working and what kind of effects that might have. I think that's really important, that we not only aim for the technical, like instrumental objectives, but also focus on the ways that we are doing them. Because I think if we raise funding for important cause, I think it's also a platform for people to come together and cooperate, and that's really important, and it brings this resilience. And also I think it's also about the political parties. If there is like this example that people really can, despite their disagreements, can come together, I think it's a powerful representation in the society. Okay, my best practice that I would like to share, it's a bit boring, forgive me, but it's we need sustainable structures if we want to clearly trying to achieve some important aims. And here, from the media literacy point of view, I would like to mention that in Finland there is national policies for media literacy, and they are this kind of cross-governmental sectors, so there are different policy sectors that are involved in the process. And the way in which those policies are made is through extensive participatory, not only within schools or together with the cooperation in the school actors, but also in other sectors of the society. For example, media literacy and media education is really important topic in the libraries, in the youth work, in the media sector, in different companies, in different NGOs, in different public policy institutions. So what is important, if we want to make relevant and timely structures for develop those policies, then we need to really involve those people who are really taking part in the final outcome as well. it's a hard work, but I think it pays off because it already, if we create these kind of structures to even make those policies, that it is a sign for different people that their voices are valued, heard, and I think it results to the better outcomes as well.
But it certainly took time for you to do that, because this was not started in 2014 or 2022, yeah. Right? With Finland not being a part of NATO for many decades. Was that a part of the story which may not be directly applicable to some other countries? Because, for instance, in Lithuania, we thought history has ended in 2004. We are in EU and NATO, that's it. We don't need to do anything ourselves. Everything's going to be resolved automatically for some reason. And now it seems that that's not necessarily the case. So is the kind of Finnish story applicable today to others because of its uniqueness?
I think this kind of policy is not, but the way it has been done, it can be, because it's not only about because I think the media culture and also the societies and the structures, the cultures are so different. It always needs to be relevant for the local settings. That's why we need to have places for discussions, sharing these experiences, sharing this kind of contextual features that we have, and also the structures for the cooperation. So I hope that in the future, for example, in media literacy or education or this kind of societal resilience, I hope to see more emphasis on the international cooperation within the Baltic and Nordic cooperation between different states, and to find and to share these examples and share, because nowadays the media culture is more and more international, and also the threats that Europe is facing, they are international. So I think it really we need to find ways to make this cooperation more evident.
Wonderful. I'll ask one more question, then I would like to involve you with your questions or remarks. And this is going to be a very simple, very concrete question about artificial intelligence. Does it impact the work that you do, and in what particular ways? Because I would imagine, again, that if we had this particular conversation 5 years ago, some of the focus would be slightly different, because we wouldn't talk about LLMs, about ChatGPT, about some of the videos being produced in a quality that suits a professional studio, while it's done by a person sitting in his bedroom. And we are just at a starting point, I would imagine, with this kind of growing as an issue in the next weeks, possibly months, and certainly years. So how does that impact your daily work? How your agenda is changing because of it? Maybe priorities also shift. Monica, could you start? The traditional media company, LRT, public broadcaster, you have to stay relevant, and AI is certainly a major inflection point.
It is a part of our job now, and we do use it to make some of our tasks easier. And we use it, but just for you to understand, we do have a very clear strategy and guidelines on how we do it, and how we market this content and how we, But I encourage usage of it. We do have a strategy on it. And for example, it brings very positive effects. Like now we are testing on subtitling. At the moment, the main TV channel, the LRT channel, is being subtitled live in 5 languages. So it works out already pretty good, although this Lithuanian language, as it is a small language, so the models are lagging behind a little bit, but it's already doing fine. And I think in the future we will subtitle all the channels, which means that for the minorities or for diaspora who want to consume our content in Ukrainian, in Russian, in English, they are able to do it on all of the content, which is a positive example. Of course, we use it for transcription, for cleaning the sound in the radio, for example, and noises, and also our back office use it, and very happy with that. So it's just one thing on our internal operations, but speaking about general how it will impact media, so it will have a tremendous effect, and it's not going to be a very good effect. It's coming, and I already read about it in international press, and we also see in general, in Lithuania, the decrease, I would say, in the reach of news websites, which means that more and more people are probably, consuming information through ChatGPT and not even coming directly to any website, so just getting the digested information and don't really very much care about imprecise or on mistakes or errors, So it will have an effect, and I think that we don't even realize on how big it will be.
Yeah, as far as I know, some media companies have already signed agreements with ChatGPT and others in order to get at least some of revenue back, because the LLMs are using their content without accessing the websites themselves. So Financial Times, I think, have signed an agreement with ChatGPT and others, but this is very early kind of stage. Lauri, maybe you would like to add on this.
Yeah, it's a really difficult topic, and it's really much discussed in the field of education, because I think in education it's a bit different than in a professional context. In education, because I see that in some of my research I've been analyzing or thinking about this kind of a concept of temptation of ease that the technology brings to us. And it's not, of course, it's very tempting to make things easier, but in education not all things supposed to be easy. Learning, growing up as a human being, democratic participation, those are all things that they require challenge, and they require difficulties, so we can grow and flourish as a human being. So it's a important discussion that we have to really define what are those things that really can be benefited from the AI, and what are those aspects in education that might disempower us or even disengage us in different things. Yeah, so that's really, and of course, there are material consequences, the environmental impact and those things are really important also to take into account in the education setting. So it's a really difficult question. But in terms of media literacy, I think it requires more and more redefining and discussion about what we really mean with the media literacy and media education in today's context, because the context is completely different than we had a couple of years ago.
Thank you, Magnus.
Yeah, I think it's becoming a game changer now, in the way that it's so much easier, so much cheaper, goes so much faster to produce fake materials, fake videos, fake new video clips, fake voices, stories, and etc. So we need to adapt to that. We need to follow it closely. And that we do, of course. And I think we need to change how we look at media literacy as well, because this is a game changer. You can still see the kind of images where you can, they have 6 fingers, or there's a leg too many. I saw a picture of those that kind just a week ago. It was from the meeting with the European leaders and Donald Trump, where Macron had a third leg. But that will become history. The pictures, the videos will become so much better. So it will be practically, not easy to distinguish real ones from fake ones, and most people will not have that ability. So we need to find new instruments. We need to find a new way of looking at this, because the content will always be, I think, the context. I mean, will be perhaps the key. And the pictures are becoming perhaps too perfect, and that could be a clue. It's too perfect. This view, this angle, this everything. It's very difficult to find a photograph like this, but using AI you can. So we will have to find new tools, but we will do that, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's certainly an issue. I teach at the university, and sometimes I think that the submitted papers are written by AI but I also think that some of the evaluations are done by AI as well. So AI talks to AI. Yeah, let's start a conversation. So I see one hand here. If you could just briefly introduce yourself.
Sure. Beatrice Gražienė, Franklin Cave, Lithuania, and American Chamber of Commerce. And I couldn't resist temptation to use ChatGPT as you were talking, asking the same question. So ChatGPT is also very smart. So he definitely talked about media literacy and other things. But I'm really interested in building on what you said. Really, the topic is too complex to look for simple solutions. But you mentioned communities. And what ChatGPT suggests, and again, building on my prompting before, as I come from leadership sphere, but he says maybe we should try building leadership and helping leaders to become better in psychological safety, like training them, and so that they would be better leaders in their certain communities. So I was just thinking, what's your take on that?
Maybe we'll gather just a few questions and then I'll give a chance for you to respond, please.
Thank you. I'm Frederick Foy from the Swedish Psychological Defense Agency as well. I have a question for Monica, actually, regarding how do you see public service being able to equip society for psychological defense in a Nordic-Baltic context? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Odelia from Swedish Chamber of Commerce. So I'm trying to understand this term, psychological defense, and what I've heard is media literacy. I've heard getting to know adversaries and their strategies, but how much of it is building trust of the in our government that on the X they would do what they have to do, building trust with NATO, that we would trust NATO as an organization, you know, and that on the day X they will do what they promise to do. So a bit on trust side.
Thank you, and just two more.
I want to ask regarding, Rolandas, I don't want to share more. Regarding those sustainable structures that were mentioned, I'm specifically thinking whether if it's even feasible to get some examples that we can learn from the other Nordic countries, considering the quite different contexts as they were built. Let's say if Sweden for 50 years could have had that experience of slowly building up, but without the context of global internet and global trade and all the other factors discussed, which allowed a little bit of a seclusion. Now Lithuania and other Baltic countries being bombarded by those things, and a lot of much more consumerism, and again lack of leadership, and plenty of incentives for media also to kind of strive to just keep on using clickbaity titles and nonsense articles just to get some funding, like the environment being very different. And is there anything that we can really just take from other countries as examples, maybe also other countries, non-Nordic ones, that would be feasible to implement?
Hello, and thank you very much. I am the very newly landed new director of the Nordic Council of Ministers office here in Vilnius. I also happen to be a Norwegian, and my question goes to the editor-controlled media. Surveys in Norway indicate quite clearly that young people under 18, in particular young men, do not access editor-controlled traditional media at all, almost. It's a question of accessibility, relevance, but also about credibility. And certainly for young men, it seems to be a question of trust. They simply do not trust the editor-controlled media. So what are your strategies to meet this? Because if they don't trust you, it doesn't really help if you go out TikToking. Thank you.
Wonderful questions. Please, Magnus, maybe you could start.
Yes, can I address the question about trust, or the questions perhaps? Trust is absolutely crucial when it comes to building societal resilience, psychological defense. And we in Sweden, or perhaps the Nordic countries, we are quite proud of our high degree of trust within each other, in trust in institutions. We call it the Nordic gold, I think, I heard yesterday. But in fact, trust is unevenly distributed in our populations, which is a vulnerability. I saw a study a couple of years ago that mentioned that trust in where I live, in Södermalm, in Stockholm, this is a high trust community. We have very high trust to each other in media, in institutions, government, etc. If you take the subway train to Rågsved, just 10 kilometers from Södermalm, trust goes down quite low, perhaps 31% from 80% in Södermalm. And if you take a train to Malmö and Rosengård, trust goes down even lower, quite low. So trust is unevenly distributed, and that's a vulnerability that we need to work with in Sweden and possibly in other countries, I think. I don't think Norway is any different. Trust goes with education and the feeling that you are included in society, that you are part of society, that society is also for you. And that's the thing for us in the public sector. We need to be sure that we are working for everyone. And I must applaud one thing you said, Lauri, at the beginning. We should support each other. That was a very good thing to say, I think. We need to talk about these things at the kitchen table and dinner table and at work, what is actually happening out there. I think that's crucial. Support each other.
Just a little bit on maybe international cooperation, because that's what we've discussed via email, how important it is to exchange ideas amongst the Nordics. And
Can I show something for the audience here? This is a brochure that we have translated into Ukrainian. This is our handbook. It's available in Swedish and English and now also in Ukrainian. So we brought this along when we did exercises and training courses in Ukraine, because supporting each other out there is absolutely crucial. We need to do this because otherwise Russia will take country after country. We need to work together.
Thank you. Moni.
Yeah, so I will maybe start from trust, and it's a very good points addressed. The researches that were carried out in Baltic countries show that these parts of society that do not trust public service media, they don't trust the media, as they say themselves, the mainstream media in general, and they do not trust parliament, government, and other state institutions. So it comes together. But I think for public service media, of course, it's crucial to maintain this trust. This, as I say to my team, is our main currency that we use. And if the audience doesn't trust you, it means that you cannot, basically, there's no sense of existence anymore. So inclusiveness, I think that was mentioned here, it is very important. So all kind of societies, all parts of societies, all different audiences have to find something for themselves. Also, I think it is very important for us to, it is difficult because you have to adapt and speak in different tones and voices and for different audiences and choose different channels, as it wouldn't be possible to do with one channel. And it's good that we now also have this digital presence, which is expanding in LRT case, and with the young people we speak in their tone. For example, now in this season we are going to launch a special project for young people on a state and on a proper citizenship, and we really had hard time figuring out on how this project should look like. And then we realized that we are not able as editors, even younger editors to figure it out themselves, because they always go in this traditional way. So we consulted young people themselves, we consulted the creative agencies, and we switched to entire different model that we were planning before. So we also have quite a lot of part of content for young people that only is on social media, on YouTube, for example, primary on YouTube. It is also now a platform, but primary on other platforms, because they do not consume anything else but YouTube, for example, or TikTok. It also has to do with the change of culture, how journalists think and work. And what I always encourage them to do is that they have to think about the needs of audiences. They have to not to do not to only think about the topics that they think that are important, that they are interesting for them. Switch from the corridors of government to be closer to the audience and meet audiences' needs. So it is a culture change. It's a shift of thinking, and also tone and things like that. So we are talking a lot about that in European Broadcasters Union family with the other public service media, and we quite a lot of take good practices and implement also from Nordic neighbors, just to answer your further questions about cooperation. So to be honest, the Nordic broadcasters is a big and very respectful benchmark for us. We always, as LRT, we always look at them because of the if you can say, of course, they are bigger broadcasters most of the time, but still, you know, it's very, very, for us, it's some benchmark that we want to orient to, because usually BBC is just too large, or France Info, and these societies and their, how they organize their public service media and how they are popular and trusted, how they engage with their audiences is a great example for us, and we use these practices. We already used some of it regarding the rebuilding the resilience. So we are cooperating close, and also now on this autumn we will have one first meeting of not only Pan-Baltic but also Scandinavian. So Scandinavian broadcasters and also Pan-Baltic Baltic broadcasters will come and discuss on how we can operate on situations like that. So I think it's a great progress.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I would like to answer your question about the responsibility and also the leadership. I think it's highly important, not only because maybe traditionally media literacy has been something that involves only like children and young people, but now we can see that when the media culture changes and transforms and the AI is coming and so forth, it's not only the children and young people who need these new skills and knowledge, it's also the adults. And where the adults are, they are in the workplaces and they are in different kind of hobbies and so forth. So this kind of fragments or broadens the media literacy and media education landscape. And in those communities, there are also always leaders who take the responsibility that they see that, okay, I see that this is a really important thing and I have something that I can contribute to making this better the situation. And I think the leaders are in a central role also to make this more sustainable within their practice. Not only in a way that there are only those active workers or active people who see the importance, but the leaders can make really the difference. So, and also the leadership, I think it also, from a broader perspective, it can be like organizations within the field. So I think, for example, in our association, we work for our members. So we invite members from all the sectors of the society, the schools, education, libraries, youth work, and so forth. And together we try to find this kind of spaces for discussion and cooperation, that how we can make things better and how we can promote the media education in the future. So it's not just that, okay, I think that what people should do, but I want to create spaces for people to tell them what they see are important and what they could do, and then we can find a shared answers and things to do. And also maybe a final thing, yeah, I think the topic of our discussion, this kind of invisible battle, is really important, and I was curious to think that to what extent should we make this whatever invisible battle that we are facing, to what extent should we make it visible, and what ways, and to what degree? Because I think that there is a risk that if we only focus on the downsides or the risks or the challenges, then there is also this kind of unwanted consequence that it creates fear or distrust or anything like that. So I was thinking that maybe in media literacy, because we are traditionally very critical and we want to point out different mistakes and challenges and things that you cannot trust. But if we only focus on those things, then I believe we are having the consequences that we are losing the trust in general. So I think in media literacy we should focus more on the things that we can trust, and then how we understand, for example, how the institutions work in the society, how the journalism works in the society, and those kind of basic structures. Then we can also note the things that we maybe cannot trust. So yeah, I think we should emphasize the role of trust in the way that we are working.
That's a wonderful way of ending the conversation today. I would really like to thank all of the participants here on stage for their insights, again, from a variety of countries and perspectives, and optimism. I think we've heard some really good success stories, and also the need to trust, not only to distrust, but also for all of you for participating, joining, and asking questions. Thanks a lot, and the game of basketball is not going well, so please have a round of applause at least for us.